lightsaber, which he personally modified to discharge bolts of lightning, perfect for frying any redcoat Sith foolish enough to cross his path. But the colonial Jedi were not without opposition. The redcoat Sith, led by the Dark Lord Cornwallis, had crossed the Atlantic, bringing with them the dark side of taxation without representation. Their red lightsabers blazed like the very flames of oppression, ready to extinguish the light of liberty forever. The battles were fierce, and the stakes higher than the price of tea in Boston Harbor. At Bunker Hill, the colonial Jedi held their ground, their flintlock blasters firing energy bolts that could punch through the toughest redcoat armor. With each pull of the trigger, a burst of light and smoke, a fusion of the old and the new. And who could forget Thomas Jefferson, the Jedi Knight who penned the Declaration of Independence with one hand while wielding his lightsaber with the other? It was he who gave voice to the rebellion, declaring that all men are created equal, with the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Or, in this case, the right to take down a few Sith Lords. The final battle came at Yorktown, where the forces of light and dark met in a cataclysmic struggle. Washington and Cornwallis, Jedi and Sith, fought with the full might of the Force behind them. Flintlock blasters cracked through the air like thunder, while lightsabers sliced through the gloom, each swing a testament to the fight for freedom. And when the dust settled, it was the colonial Jedi who stood victorious. Cornwallis defeated, surrendered, and the force of liberty triumphed over tyranny. The Sith were driven back across the sea, and a new hope was born, a republic where the force of freedom would reign supreme. But the story does not end there. Knowing that the dark side could rise again, the Founding Fathers in their final moments channeled all their power, their wisdom, and their hope for the future into one single powerful crystal, a crystal of liberty. They knew that one day the force of liberty would need a new champion, someone worthy to wield this ancient power and restore balance when the force of freedom was once again threatened. For generations, the crystal lay hidden, its power waiting for the right moment, the right person to awaken it. And then, one fateful day, it was discovered by a man named Austin Peterson, a libertarian, a modern-day freedom fighter who would fulfill the destiny set in motion centuries before. The crystal called to him, and with it, Austin took up the mantle of the colonial Jedi, determined to bring balance back to the force of liberty in the United States. Through his show, the Wake Up America show, Austin Peterson became the voice of resistance, the spark of rebellion against the creeping darkness of tyranny. With the power of the Founding Fathers' crystal, he fights not with lightsabers or blasters, but with the force of truth, reason, and unwavering dedication to the principles of liberty. So remember, young Padawan, the fight for freedom is never easy, but with courage, unity, and a little bit of force on your side, even the darkest Sith can be vanquished. May the force of freedom be with you, always. In a galaxy not so far away, but a couple of centuries ago, a great struggle unfolded. A time of turmoil, where the force of freedom clashed against the oppressive grip of tyranny. This is the story of the Founding Fathers, the brave Jedi of the colonies, who dared to defy the dark side of the Redcoat Sith. Master George Washington, leader of the colonial Jedi, was no ordinary soldier. With a flintlock blaster in one hand, capable of delivering precise shots with the power of 1,000 musket balls, and a lightsaber forged from the ancient Liberty crystals, Washington was the beacon of hope in the darkness that covered the 13 colonies. And then there was Benjamin Franklin, the Yoda of the Revolution. Wise, cunning, and always a few steps ahead, Franklin's mind was sharper than his lightsaber, which he personally modified to discharge bolts of lightning, perfect for frying any redcoat Sith foolish enough to cross his path. But the colonial Jedi were not without opposition. The redcoat Sith, led by the Dark Lord Cornwallis, had crossed the Atlantic, bringing with them the dark side of taxation without representation. Their red lightsabers blazed like the very flames of oppression, ready to extinguish the light of liberty forever. The battles were fierce, and the stakes higher than the price of tea in Boston Harbor. At Bunker Hill, the colonial Jedi held their ground, their flintlock blasters firing energy bolts that could punch through the toughest redcoat armor. With each pull of the trigger, a burst of light and smoke, a fusion of the old and the new. And who could forget Thomas Jefferson, the Jedi Knight who penned the Declaration of Independence with one hand while wielding his lightsaber with the other? It was he who gave voice to the rebellion, declaring that all men are created equal, with the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Or, in this case, the right to take down a few Sith Lords. The final battle came at Yorktown, where the forces of light and dark met in a cataclysmic struggle. Washington and Cornwallis, Jedi and Sith, fought with the full might of the Force behind them. Flintlock blasters cracked through the air like thunder, while lightsabers sliced through the gloom, each swing a testament to the fight for freedom. And when the dust settled, it was the colonial Jedi who stood victorious. Cornwallis defeated, surrendered, and the force of liberty triumphed over tyranny. The Sith were driven back across the sea, and a new hope.
Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Happy Monday. We made it. Today is the 9th of September. Hope you guys are feeling good. How's everybody doing? Waking up? Splash a little water in your face? Maybe have a little bit of oatmeal, something warm to get your day started, because it's cold outside. Brr! I hate it. I don't like getting up in the morning and like, you're creaking bones at 43 years old. Wah, so sad. It can really dig down deep. Some Missourians can even tell the weather from the creak in their bones. They're like, my knee is acting up. It's a little twitchy here in Missouri. I think there might be rain or snow. You know what I mean? Know what I mean, Vern? We've got a great show for you today. Two incredible guests. Kamala Peterson will join us today on the show on Monday, which is kind of out of character for her. She's busy tomorrow. She's going to be with us today. At 8:30, we're going to talk to her this morning about maybe a little bit of good news. Amendment 3, which is a ballot measure here in the state of Missouri to legalize abortion constitutionally. Big bad juju. May not make it to the ballot. Yeah. Some good news. Maybe. Missouri's Supreme Court will decide. It's all about, did they get enough signatures, the right signatures in the right place? Kamala will explain at 8:30 this morning. So she's off her regular Tuesday spot. But because it's Monday, we're going to have our friend John Miltimore joining us live. Yes. Andy Opperman over the chat says, I love the cooler weather. Yesterday was simply stunning here in JC. Yes, it is. I like the cooler weather, not the cold weather. When I get up and it's like 4:35 a.m. when I'm walking out the door of the garage, it's just like cold and dark and there's nobody around. And sometimes it's nice. Sometimes the sunrise can be beautiful. It depends on the time of year. And now is definitely better than like the cold winter. Blow, blow, thou winter wind. And all of that and such. Courtney Conover joining us live in the chat. Drew Van Runkle as well. Drew, it's been great hanging out with you. I got a package for you in my truck this morning. They're going to take to the post office and drop it off. You won that little George Washington coin, and we're shipping it out today. So keep an eye out for that. And MindArt ended up not being able to use the extra small American flag shorts. So we're going to figure out what to do with those some other point. If you're just tuning into the show, make sure that you click that like button, of course, and subscribe to the channel. If today's the very first time you've ever watched the Wake Up America show, we'd love to have you be a regular guest. We are going to be talking about the election today and the upcoming debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. I'm pretty sure that the debate is going to sound something like this.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm going to come.
No.
Oh.
No, Trump. No, don't come. It's too early, Austin. It's too early. It's too early. That's okay. We've got more stuff to talk about this morning. I've got a billion clips per usual. You know how hard I work for you. I work as hard as a Chinese spy in the governor's office of New York, Kathy Hochul, or I work as hard as a Russian spy in the offices of Russia Today to infiltrate conservative circles. Does anybody really believe anything that they say anymore? Am I the only one who is not getting any Russian money? Somebody said, Austin, because I was not an anti-Semite the other day, that for whatever reason they were like mad at me because they're like, what about Israel? And they're like, Austin, you don't even get paid by Israel. You're not even a shill. You're not even a paid shill for Israel, right, man? Yeah, man, the Zionist war machine, man. Well, speaking of the Zionist war machine, Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris. And is that a good thing, a bad thing? Actually, you know what? Good for you, Dick Cheney. You found yourself a niche, a tale of two Cheneys. Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, both Cheneys endorsed Kamala Harris for president of the United States. Everything's bonkers. We live in an absurd timeline, but I'm here for it. Does anybody else find this to be extremely entertaining? Wait until I play for you the Tulsi Gabbard response to Dick Cheney's endorsement and the Cheneys' endorsement of Kamala Harris. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let's just get to it right now, shall we? Here's the meme. Dick Cheney, this is posted by Donald Trump Jr. over on X. 12 million followers. Dear God, my man. Dick Cheney is now a good guy, says all of the news media. That's a pretty funny meme there. Yes. CNN, Vice, NBC, Politico. Dick Cheney is now a good guy, right? They've been calling this guy, the left has been, left and libertarians and some conservatives have been calling George W. Bush and Dick Cheney warmongers. The Republicans and the conservatives got on board with that a little bit later because now many of them, especially Trumpers, do not like Dick Cheney. It used to be their party. He was the vice president. I mean, but they've kind of turned on him in the way that they've turned on Mike Pence. And you know what? I'm here for it. It's a Liberty Republican. These are not my guys. But let's hear what Tulsi Gabbard had to say about it. Her response is epic.
I have a very simple message for my Democrat friends, my independent friends, those who may not be sure about who they're voting for in this election. Dick Cheney has just made the choice very clear. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney, the architect of everything that has gone wrong in the Middle East for the last few decades. And so it's interesting because if you listen to the New York Times or some of the other mainstream media, they're saying, oh, don't expect much from Kamala Harris in the way of policies and details and plans, and we're not going to know much about what kind of president she's going to be because she doesn't have much time. They're conveniently ignoring the fact that she's been there working in the White House the last 3.5 years alongside Joe Biden. She's been the last one in the room, according to her, as these big decisions are being made. But we look at who she says, her response to the Dick Cheney announcement today was that she was honored to have his endorsement. And we got military veterans in the house. Got a lot of you who probably served in the Middle East like I did. And so it sickened me, Tucker, to read those words today, both from Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, and Kamala Harris, because we have people who we care very much about who were killed in those wars.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's funny. My very first election that I could vote in was the year 2000. So I turned 18 in 1999, and then the presidential election was in 2000. It was my first year freshman of college. I was very interested in the election. It was Al Gore versus George W. Bush, and I was just excited to be able to participate in politics for the first time. So in the year 2000, I voted for George W. Bush, being a more right-leaning young person, but in 2004, when it came time versus John Kerry, I think I didn't vote that year because I had been, after 9/11 happened, of course, in 2001, I became very disillusioned with the direction of the government, and I wasn't really excited to vote anymore. I didn't like the idea of going to vote for George W. Bush. I didn't like the idea of going to vote for John Kerry, but I hadn't really had my sort of spiritual or philosophical awakening for my views, of course, until Congressman Ron Paul in 2007. I just sort of walked away from politics for about 4 or 5 years and was working on my career, trying to make graduate from college and, get into the business, get into the industry. So it wasn't until 2007, when I was living in New York City, that I was inspired by Congressman Ron Paul, and you all know the rest if you know my story. But I would say that it is fascinating to see how the party went from the party of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, pro-war, neoconservative, bomb the hell out of everything. John McCain, remember in 2008? What a candidate John McCain was. I mean, and now to see the left and Kamala Harris gladly accepting the endorsement of Dick Cheney, because there was such a strong anti-war movement at the time. If you remember in 2006, 7, and 8, the anti-war movement was strongly a left-wing movement. And it wasn't until Congressman Ron Paul animated so many young right-wingers and former progressives and some even just progressive people to support his campaign that the anti-war momentum really started to shift away into the more right-wing Republican camp, more right-wing libertarians and conservatives and populists. And of course, at that time, we had what was becoming the Tea Party years. And during the Tea Party years, I served at the Fox Business Network alongside Judge Andrew Napolitano. And for that 2 years, I spent producing interviews with Judge Napolitano, Rand Paul, Ron Paul, name any popular right-wing figure, Steve Forbes, whoever. They were all on my, John Stossel, right? They were all on our show. And I got to know these men. Tom Woods, I would book, right? Many Mises scholars. Think about any Austrian economist that you might know out there. I probably booked, on Fox Business. And if not on my shows, on others as well. I was doing what I could to try and advance this movement, right? And that has a very strong anti-war element to it. And now here we are today, and it seems as if the anti-war movement, if it exists at all, which I would make, and I think there's an argument to say that there really is no true anti-war movement in the United States. There might be a few anti-war people, and Tulsi Gabbard might fit that that definition, very loosely based. Of course, she's in the military. And I think that now what's fascinating is that mostly anti-war seems to me to be more of a virtue signaling position than an actual position. There are very few Lysander Spooners out there, true principled, I'm not supporting either side type of people out there. And if there are, bless them and may they be holy and live in peace, right? Mother Teresa's. But in my argument, why the Kamala Harris, Dick Cheney endorsement, they never had any principles in the first place. The anti-war left was, for the most part, not really anti-war. They were just anti-Republican wars. They were very pro-Democrat wars. And Obama, of course, convinced them of that. But the Democrats have always been much more of a warmongering party than the Republicans have. If you look at the Democrats who started wars, it was only during the George W. Bush era that leftists were like, oh, they're warmongering Republicans. And when you had people like George W. Bush and John McCain and so many other noted, Lindsey Graham and so many other noted hawks in the Republican Party, it was very easy to point the finger and do that. Now they can't, because what Donald Trump has done in taking over the Republican Party, Trump has changed the attitude towards foreign policy. And even though Trump has not made gains in regards to civil liberties relative to privacy, Judge Napolitano famously talks about the renewal of FISA, which would have really done a number on our if. Excuse me, I want to make sure I get this right. It's very early and my coffee's still kicking in. But if Donald Trump had gotten rid of FISA, listen to Judge Napolitano, this country would be much better off in regards to civil liberties, in regards to protections against unlawful or unconstitutional search and surveillance. Which we're all under, by the way, and your host, including your host. This is why, and I know that people are getting annoyed with me on X for talking about the situation involving Tenet Media and Lauren Chen and Tim Pool and Benny Johnson and Dave Rubin and others, many, of course, of whom are my friends like Dave Rubin, acquaintances like Tim Pool, and known second or third in a branch of all these people who are involved. I used to do a little bit of side work with Lauren Southern, for example, and most of these people have made statements except for Lauren Chen. But I talk about that situation because I'm talking about the influence of this election and what's happening. There are multiple layers to what's going on. And I would think that you would think that if I didn't talk about this situation or this scenario, knowing these people, that you would probably think that I have less integrity. And since I don't take any Russian money and I don't take money from institutions other than American corporations that send me money for advertisement, which you see like gold. And but for the most part, I'm actually my own sponsor. I sell my own products from forlibertyshop.com, and my donors are you. So if any of you are Russian out there, you need to let me know. Any Russians out there other than hers mommy? So there are many layers to this, and I would say, I would hope that you would trust me, but I think that's actually the wrong way to frame something like this when you hear what I'm talking about in this show from the positions that I take. But don't trust me. Verify me. Check it out, right? Be willing to look into your favorite influencer's background and ask yourself if you really think that they're a trustworthy individual, right? And believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. I can't remember what's the statement there. None of what you see, half of what you hear. None of what you hear, half of what you see. Anyways, so yeah, so that's my source of funding. I've got a million billion clips. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all of them this morning. I should probably go ahead and get it started. Why don't we do it? A million billion clips. I thought that the Tulsi Gabbard thing was good. Let's see. Yeah. Oh my God. This one made me laugh so hard. Bernie Sanders did an interview on Meet the Press and was asked about Kamala Harris and her flip-flops on policy. Bernie has really gone downhill. Not that I ever had a really high opinion of him in the first place, but take a listen to this.
Vice President Kamala Harris as a progressive. She has previously supported Medicare for all. Now she does not. She's previously supported a ban on fracking. Now she does not. These, Senator, are ideas that you have campaigned on. Do you think that she is abandoning her progressive ideals?
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election. My own view is slightly different. I think that in America today, there are a lot of people, rural people, working class people, who no longer believe that the United States Congress and government represents their interests. They're dominated by big money interests. So I think that there is something wrong, personally, when we are the only...
Described Vice President Kamala Harris.
So there you go. Bernie Sanders giving the game away. She hasn't abandoned her progressive ideals. She's just being pragmatic and saying what she needs to say in order to win the election. Duh. Bernie, you're stabbing her in the back, bro. I should have played this when we were talking about Dick Cheney, but I love this interview on CNN. Whoever this new Republican guy is that they have there all the time, here with Van Jones and this, what would you say, generic blonde woman, taking them to task over the Dick Cheney endorsement.
Democrats have called Dick Cheney a war criminal for 20 years, and now all of a sudden they're clapping like seals to get his endorsement. This does not strike me as people who are interested in listening to your conservative viewpoints. They are hungry for power. They will take Dick Cheney's endorsement today. Democrats have called Dick.
And I wish that I had the longer version of that one. Democrats have called Dick Cheney a war criminal for years, and now all of a sudden they're clapping like seals to get his endorsement. That's funny. I like this guy. I don't know what his name is, but I've seen him pop up a little bit. He's kind of like the token Republican that they bring out there. They trot out on CNN every once in a while. This clip from Senator John Kennedy just really made me laugh, and it's only 18 seconds. Take a listen. Oh, God, turn that volume up. Come on.
You see the worst in people, I know many people in Washington, D.C. that would they would unplug your life support to charge their cell phone. It turns.
They would he knows many people in D.C. who would unplug your life support to charge their cell phone. So true. I love this. This is an 8-minute clip, so this is a live reaction. I don't know if we're going to get to that in just a moment, but here we go. So this is Bernie Sanders, and he's answered the question on Meet the Press about the Dick Cheney endorsement. Take a listen.
Senator, Before I let you go, I do have to ask you about her recent endorsements by two people who are not progressives at all. Of course, I'm talking about Dick and Liz Cheney. This week, they said they're going to support her. They're going to vote for her. It's worth noting, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney voted with former President Trump more than 90% of the time, was quite critical when President Biden picked her as his running mate. Would you welcome seeing Liz Cheney out on the campaign trail?
Well, Kristen, what I think Dick and Liz Cheney are saying is that in this existential moment in American history, it's not just issues. Cheney and I agree on nothing, no issues. But what we do believe in is that the United States should retain its democratic foundations. And it's not just Cheney. I think there is a significant number of Republicans who say, well, you know, I may not agree with the vice president on this issue or that issue, but I cannot support somebody who's a pathological liar, somebody who fomented a insurrection to overthrow the election return. So I applaud the Cheneys for their courage in defending democracy. Obviously, on all the issues, we have very different points of view.
Yeah. Well, are you sure you really have different points of view, Bernie, on all the issues? You know, that is the funny thing. The democratic socialists, the neocons, you know, when you're a libertarian and you believe in limited government and you believe in freedom, that's why when you look at you call it the uniparty, it's because there really isn't a whole lot of daylight between the views of someone like Bernie Sanders and the NeverTrump neocons who are endorsing Kamala Harris because they're so triggered by Donald Trump. Why are they so triggered by Donald Trump? I think, you know, they're triggered more by the fact that they lost power than the philosophical differences that neoconservatives have with Donald Trump on something like foreign policy, of course, which is their bread and butter. There's also a pecuniary interest that neocons have in maintaining the interventionist wars of the Middle East and elsewhere. They want to maintain, you know, Pax Americana. They can claim on one hand that it is to protect American merchant shipping vessels and shipping lanes and international trade. And on one hand, they have a point. But then on the other hand, of course, many of the institutions that they control, or the boards of the boards of the institutions, profit and non, that they sit on, of course, directly benefit from that system of defense. And it just strikes me as creating a conflict of interest, of course. And so there's multi layers to the reasonings for why someone who is on the right would come out and say, I'm for Kamala Harris. Some of them are like, you know, paid shills, right? Like, you know, whether you're taking Russian money or whether you're taking Dick Cheney money, there are people who are influencing these decisions behind the scenes. Some of the things we know, some of the things we don't know. Some of the people an average voter might have a grasp on. Most of the times an average voter is not going to have a grasp on it, and they're just voting left or right or what have you. Good morning. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, nice to see you guys. I'm glad you're here with us. You can send us a text today. Let us know what's on your mind at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open at 573-319-1586. Again, one more time, 573-319-1586. We're going to have John Miltimore at 8 a.m. Central today. I've got this story I'm really looking forward to talking to him about. Republican voters got more socially liberal under Trump. This is from Reason Magazine. Liberals spent the last decade moving leftward on questions of race and sexual orientation, and so did conservatives. Fascinating piece over at Reason Magazine. We're going to speak to John Miltimore this morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. Are you guys interested in seeing the bonus content? Yeah. If we hit $60 raised by the end of the show, then you guys will get to see the bonus content, and you can see the bonus content with, I think it's another like $15 is all we've got to raise in order to see the bonus video today, the mini documentary that I produced about a news story that you won't find anywhere else. So if you guys would like to see the bonus content, our friend Tony Martinez this morning already went over to the shop and bought himself a really cool Javier Milei shirt. I haven't shown this to you guys yet. I just designed it. It's brand new. So this poster that was going up around Buenos Aires, less Marx, more Milei, was kind of this iconic image. So I took my own spin on it, and Javier. Hold on 1 second. Oh, I'm looking. Sometimes my search gets a little messed up. Javier, send a prayer, Javier, that the Yanks are coming. I got like 6 pages of Javier Milei merchandise. I forget what the title and the name of the shirt was. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. Put on a song, Austin, while you're getting your... Oh, not that song. That's the sad song. Javier Milei, Retro Gamer Tee, Javier Milei. Oh, wow, Austin. Could you get some more Javier Milei stuff in here, please? Did I miss it? It's a Javier Milei shirt. Well, it was a take on his icon. There it is. Sweet. Yes. Less Marks, more Milei. Available for sale at only forlibertyshop.com. It is the coolest collection of Javier Milei merch in the entire country. Less Marks, more Milei. A beautiful poster, and I made like a sort of, I guess, anime style, almost retro take on it. You can get that at forlibertyshop.com. It's called Less Marks, More Milei, Icon of Liberty t-shirt. So type it up there in your search bar. Make sure that you're selecting all, not just one of these. That's what I was doing before having problems. Less Marks, More Milei at forlibertyshop.com. Can I get an amen? So thank you to Tony for buying that and something else. Courtney Conover says, fine, here's $5 toward it. Yes. All we got to raise is 10 more bucks. Everybody loves those mutton chops. Oh, so sexy. Good. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, don't forget to click that like button. We'd love to have you be a regular guest of the Wake Up America show. Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time is the show. Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time is the show. So if you'd like to join us regularly, you can click that follow button over at rumble.com/AP for Liberty. That's rumble.com/AP, the number 4. Oh, yes, AP for Liberty. Looks like thank you, Quest, for dropping $1 in the tip jar. Appreciate that. Shake that moneymaker, Austin. Only $9 more to go, and you guys can see the bonus content. Yes, bonus content. Really been excited about what's happening with the For Liberty Network, guys. I have like 2 meetings a week with the new shows, Liberty Tonight and Daniela Pensak's Culturama, which is coming this fall. If you haven't heard this yet, some of you have, some of you haven't. But I'm launching 2 new podcasts that I will be producing as part of a new network called the For Liberty Network, which is the Wake Up America show, us, and then Culturama and Liberty Tonight, which will be their own live shows with their own themes and hosts, and it'll be a whole lot of fun. So I hope you'll consume that content as well. I'd love it for you guys to follow their channels, right? Even here on Rumble, the rumble.com/Liberty Tonight, and then rumble.com/Culturama will take you to their pages, and that is the new For Liberty Network. There we go. At 8 a.m., we're going to speak to John Miltimore, and at 8:30, we're going to speak to Camellia about an abortion ballot measure here in Missouri, which might be getting tossed off, which is great news. We're all really excited to see that one. And FYI, we are about to react now to a clip. This is an 8-minute video, so we're going to do a live reaction to it. I haven't been able to see all of it because it just like dropped 3 days ago, but I just saw it this morning. Okay, this is CNN calling out Kamala Harris for using Trump's border wall in a campaign ad, which is weird because they stopped doing journalism after the first few days of Donald Trump's, thankfully, assassination attempt rather than an actual assassination. CNN did journalism for like 3 or 4 days. This must be a very brief moment in time of CNN doing actual journalism. Take a listen.
The K-File team scoured Kamala Harris's tweets and statements going all the way back to 2017. And what they found was more than 50 instances of Harris slamming Trump's border wall. But now, new Harris campaign ads actually showcase that very wall.
As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border.
And on top of critical tweets, Harris also wrote in her 2019 book, quote, "There was a bigger reason to oppose the border wall. A useless wall on the southern border would be nothing more than a symbol, a monument standing in opposition to not just everything I value, but to the fundamental values upon which this country was built. How could I vote to build what would be little more than a monument designed to send the cold, hard message, keep out?"
Dude, she wrote it in her book. Yeah. So Aaron Burnett is the one who posted the video. This is from Sky News, showing that in her book, she had said, I mean, this is a fundamental issue at hand that we must not create with the value, but the fundamental values upon which this country was built. How could I vote to build what would be little more than a monument designed to send the cold, hard message, keep out?
Do not come.
What?
Do not come.
I'm going to come.
Oh. She's been all over the place when it comes to the border wall, and it's a question of what does she actually believe. Here's my take on it. My belief is that she is absolutely in favor of unchecked mass migration, no walls, no borders, nothing. I think that that's really who she is. I think that Bernie Sanders earlier, what he said was correct. I think that she still believes all of the same stuff that she believed when she was not running for office, and that now that the election is a couple of months away, I think that Kamala Harris is now looking at this situation and saying, you know what? I got to win this election, and then I can put my progressive values into place. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, 573-319-1586 is the text line. We'd love to hear your thoughts. One listener had a question actually this morning asking about Steph. Is Steph coming out with a new video soon? She's just being she doesn't have a camera crew to tape every moment now that she's doing so much to take care of the baby, Hazel. And so we've really had to, switch up our priorities at home, and we're not running at full steam at this moment. We're running at like 75% power at the Peterson house because the baby just takes up 25% is like a reasonable estimate of the amount of power that maybe I've taken 25% of my productive capacity and put it into the baby. Stephanie has put like 75% of her creative capacity into the baby. So I don't know if she's going to make a video soon. And frankly, I'm too afraid to ask. But rest assured, I am taping lots of videos and taking lots of pictures. So the moment that she feels like she wants to make another hustling and homemaking video or to do a vlog update to let everybody know how she's doing personally with postpartum and the baby, I promise that there will be plenty of content and pictures and videos for her to grab and use. So thank you guys very much for asking that one. That's very sweet of you. Is she coming? I'm glad you want to see her. I'll let her know. Again, you can send us a text too like that at 573-319-1586 is the text line. And that text line is open night or day. We'd love to hear from you anytime if you're listening to the audio version later, which you can download the audio version on iTunes or Spotify, just FYI. If mispronouncing Kamala's name is sexist and racist, why are these people so sexist and racist?
Campaign against Kamala Harris has begun. You'll notice they purposefully pronounce her name wrong. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
People like Kamala Harris.
But as Kamala said,
Kamala Harris.
Kamala and I. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris is Kamala.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
That Kamala Harris was a very very good prosecutor.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. I know her. Kamala was first Biden and Kamala. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
And to the Kamala point, they purposefully pronounce her name wrong.
Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, the great Kamala Harris. Kamala, I like to push the Premalot. Good morning to Barney Styles in the chat. What's up? Look, it's Liz. Mighty Megatron. How you doing, brother? Quest fanning, good to see you guys. Dad Bod Baboon hanging out. It's nice to see you. LW78 donated $10. You sweet little boy. Give me a kiss. Says, imagine that ducking, chasing a guy meme. Kamala has Republicans supporting her. What kind of Republicans? What kind of Republicans? I know that meme. The ducks chasing the guy. You know, I've seen that one. That's a good one, L-Dubs. And thank you. You have unlocked the bonus content just in time, too, because the bonus content just came fresh and hot right off the line. So you guys get to watch that instead of the commercials when we go to see John Miltimore today in 15 minutes. With cat-like tread upon our seats we sail, in silence dread, a boisterous way we sail. No sound at all, we never speak a word. What up, extremely hurt. Ta-don, ta-da. Ta-don, ta-da. I think that with cat-like tread, our prey we steal. Thank you very much, by the way, to Joni Rankin for that Pirates of Penzance call-out. Yes. Despite in manners animal, vegetable and mineral, I am the very model of a modern major general. Ta-da! I played one of the Keystone Cops in that show back in 10th Theater in Springfield, Missouri, in like the year 2002 or something like that. Can't remember exactly. Matt Walsh sat down with a young female leftist and asked questions about their daughters. Halloween is approaching, cultural appropriation season. Take a listen.
My daughter's 4 years old. I am an anti-racist educator, quote unquote. She's still watching Disney movies and she is choosing a white princess over princesses of color.
Have you talked to her about that?
All the time.
My 3-year-old daughter is her favorite princess is Moana.
Love it.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
But then I also thought, there's a little bit of cultural appropriation here. She wants to be Moana for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we navigate that? Do I go and buy the Pacific Islander native attire for my white 3-year-old?
I wouldn't.
But I guess what we might call the Moana problem here is what, on one hand, is cultural appropriation. On the other hand, there's gravitating towards white characters.
Right.
So it's almost like no matter which way you go, you end up back in racism.
We think every space belongs to us because we live in a white supremacist society.
Is America an inherently racist country?
I think the word inherent is challenging there. If we say...
Fundamentally,
yes. America is racist to its bones. All of the...
So inherently.
Yeah.
They gonna say you racist.
Oh my God. Thank you, Steelbringer, for the $5 donation, brother. He says you should do a Jefferson musical. I mean, why not? Yeah, how about that? I mean, they did a Hamilton musical. I think the only way you could get a Jefferson musical on its feet, though, that doesn't conform to the racial expectations of modern society without having to do some kind of trigger warning about Thomas Jefferson owed slaves. You'd have to have the Sally Hemings in there, right? Because that's the only way that the left would support it. And, frankly, if you want to make a musical, you're going to need leftists because that's really all there is that does musical theater. AmIRacist.com, new movie coming out with Matt Walsh. Looks good in theaters September 13. You can buy tickets, AmIRacist.com. Very funny clip. Thank you, Matt Walsh, for that one. And in that vein, watch this.
So you know how those lids are, because this is, I'm just going to speak, okay? So this is it. So you know how those lids on those Starbucks cups, they're white, right? And so if you wear lipstick, they get all And so then I find myself in meetings if I'm the only woman, and that's kind of, and so I keep taking the lid off and having my cup out so that I don't have that big lipstick mark on the lid. So I said, can we do something about the color of the lid? So that was that conversation.
That was good, whoever did that. This is an out-of-context clip of Tucker Carlson from 25 years ago.
Part of the sad thing about Pat Buchanan, as far as I'm concerned, and just to restate, I mean, Pat does raise issues that I think are important. I mean, I think that, the sovereignty of the American military, et cetera, I mean, these are not just crank issues. But unfortunately, Pat Buchanan raises them in a way that I think is discredited. And when attacked, he can always fall back on the line, well, the tiny cabal that controls American politics doesn't like me because I speak truth to power. This is actually, incidentally, almost verbatim what he said the other day, that I offend the plutocracy, that I'm a wanted man by the inside the Beltway people, and in every sense cast himself as a victim who is sort of a Karen Silkwood of politics, someone who's so truthful that he's being hunted down by the conspiracy that runs Washington. I mean, it's all a bit much. Maybe Pat Buchanan just says things that are kind of kooky, and that's why he's being criticized. It's perfectly valid to question America's relationship with Israel. Israel has a lobby. It's perfectly fair, as far as I'm concerned, to beat up on Israel's lobby. But I don't think that's the reason that Buchanan is being labeled an anti-Semite. It's this kind of, as I've said, this relentless bringing up topics related to Judaism. I mean, famously, Pat, always beats up on Goldman Sachs, but never Morgan Stanley. I mean, it's really hard to. There is no point at which Pat Buchanan has held a press conference and said, I really don't like the Jews. I think they're a sinister force in America. But I think, and it took me years to come to this position. I mean, I'm not throwing the term anti-Semite around. But you reach a point when you say, well, gee, here's a guy who has gone out of his way to defend Demjanjuk and other accused Nazi war criminals, who's constantly attacked Israel, who's attacked American Jews for supporting Israel unduly, who's implied that American Jews push America into wars in which non-Jews die. There really is, and again, I'm not hysterical on this subject, but I do believe that there is a pattern with Pat Buchanan of needling the Jews. Is that anti-Semitic? Yeah. I mean, after a while, you conclude it is, in some sense, anti-Semitic. I mean, Pat Buchanan obviously has a lot of personal and affectionate relationships with people who are Jewish. So on a personal level, perhaps he's not, but on a different, maybe thematic level, I think he probably is. I think that people should be allowed to have differing views on immigration. I think people should be allowed to point out the fact that there is an Israeli lobby, and yes, it's powerful, and debate the merits of that, I guess. I don't think there's, strictly speaking, anything wrong with that. But again, I think Pat Buchanan is part of the reason it's so hard to have that conversation, because he discredits it by his presence, because he gives people who watch him carefully the sense that he has another agenda that has to do with personal dislike, and that he believes in conspiracies, and that he believes that the Jews are this sinister, secretly organized force trying to affect American politics. And those aren't discussions I think normal people, sober people, should be having, because I think they're ludicrous.
Well, it's fascinating. Now, when Tucker Carlson said those words 25 years ago, he was a writer at the Weekly Standard. That is the old neocon mag. I think Bill Kristol was the founder of it. It's now defunct. But 25 years ago, he's a staff writer there for the Bill Kristol neocon mag, and he takes these positions. I wonder what changed. I really wonder what it was that Tucker Carlson saw that had him have such a turnabout on these positions. I would be curious to hear that from Tucker. I wonder if Tucker ever looks at some of these old clips and re-examines his views. Certainly, I've re-examined my views. Absolutely. I definitely have different beliefs than I did in 2008. And I think it's wise. That means that you've actually grown. Who hasn't changed their minds about some earth-shatteringly major issue or political belief or philosophical belief? Perhaps you haven't gone straight from conservative or libertarian to flat out leftist communist. Some people have, but it's a fascinating juxtaposition of the Tucker Carlson then when he was working for Bill Kristol to the Tucker Carlson today. And one has to wonder if he either changed his mind and over the years, and just had an honest come to Jesus moment, and he's arrived at where he's at today, or perhaps he believed then what he believes today, but he was working for Bill Kristol and the neocons, so he felt like he had, in order to climb the ladder, he needed to take those positions in Washington D.C. when he was interviewed then on C-SPAN. In order to, I guess, fit in with polite society at the time. It's hard to tell, and you can't know somebody's spirit or their heart. But that Tucker of 25 years ago would not look at the Tucker Carlson of today and say that they're very much the same person. And as someone who's followed Tucker for quite a long time, some of you might not remember, but in 2008, he was very much a supporter of Congressman Ron Paul's presidential campaign. So I very much liked Tucker when I first sort of started reading his work and coming into experience them. Although I remember specifically that Ron Paul's campaign was very upset with Tucker Carlson after Tucker took prostitutes from the Moonlight Bunny Ranch in Reno, Nevada, and brought prostitutes to a Ron Paul event. Specifically as sort of a troll or a joke about the fact that libertarians wanted to legalize prostitution. You can look this all up. It's still out there in the archives. But I remember Ron Paul's campaign. I don't know if Paul himself was upset about it, although Paul was very socially conservative. As you all remember, when he was on that movie Bruno with the guy who did Borat, Sacha Baron Cohen, they pranked Ron Paul in the Bruno movie, for example, and you could tell from his response to Bruno's prank that Paul is very socially conservative. So it's possible that Ron Paul might have been upset with Tucker Carlson at that time for bringing prostitutes to one of his events and making a big deal out of it and getting a lot of press for it. But then there was another situation at the Rally for the Republic in Minnesota. There were two major speakers at the event. Tucker Carlson was the MC. He was master of ceremonying Ron Paul's Rally for the Republic, and I was there. And when Governor Jesse Ventura got up in front of the crowd of Ron Paul libertarians at that event and said that he believed essentially that 9/11 was an inside job, Tucker Carlson was so offended that he stormed out of the convention and then disappeared and deserted us. So then we had no more master of ceremonies, and Ron Paul libertarians were very upset with him because of the way that he behaved in abandoning us after Jesse Ventura said that. So he kind of looked at all of us Ron Paul libertarians as if we're kooks, and as if we were kooks. Now, what's fascinating now is that it appears as if Tucker Carlson would not be as offended at someone like Jesse Ventura saying something like that at a Ron Paul rally, and he doesn't do things like show up at Ron Paul events with prostitutes anymore. So Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson has a lot of very negative things to say about libertarians still. So it's a fascinating juxtaposition when you followed Tucker over the years and you've seen him take all these different positions. One has to wonder, it just doesn't it seem like he's fucking with us a little bit? Do you ever feel like you're being fucked with? Like, I feel like I'm being fucked with when I'm watching him, right? Like, I don't know what it is you really believe, or maybe you're just trying to get a rise out of people when you pull pranks like these, right? Like, but it feels very agent provocateur, for example. I mean, do you stand on principles? I mean, can you explain to us why, you were so upset by the conspiracy theories that Jesse Ventura was pushing in 2008, and what's changed, right? Again, I feel like I'm being fucked with, and I honestly don't like it. I just don't like it. It's confusing to me. And I feel like I have a very reasonable view of the world. I can look at things at face value, consider ideas that I don't agree with, and entertain an idea without accepting it. Is anybody else as confused as I am? Right? I just wonder, are we being fucked with? Right? Maybe you guys see something I don't. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, you can text us at 573-319-1586 is the text line. Let me know your thoughts on this one. Let's talk to John Miltimore about how Donald Trump has made the Republican Party more socially liberal. That's right. Republican voters got more socially liberal under Trump. I think this has a lot to do with the Tucker Carlson thing as well. Let's wrap that all up. Enjoy the bonus content. I'll be right back with John Miltimore on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. This is content, not a commercial. We'll be right back.
We kind of lied to the American people about it. And this
kinda. And
we it really began my own libertarian journey. And I think Tucker's had a similar awakening. And so the other point I want to make is that once you start to realize that you're being lied to, and this is where like all these things that we accepted, all these things that we learned about in school, you find out that there's a whole lot of lies that we still accept today that are, and a lot of times we can't question these lies, right? These are things that if you talk publicly about, some of these things, what we're seeing, like World War II, if you question some of the mythology of World War II, you'll get deep trouble, right? Like suddenly, and there's ways to do this, like without going. I think Tucker is kind of out way too far on this stuff. We
can agree that but it's like it feels like he's fucking with us when he goes to Russia and like goes to the grocery store and suggests that like things are better in Russia because of how nice their grocery stores are, and like. We're all like, if you understand anything about economics, your dollar will go farther in Russia because the dollar is so much stronger. And it's kind of like, who's believing that? Who is that content for, right? I mean, who watches that and goes, oh yeah, definitely would be better situation groceries. Other countries compared to the United States are poor as shit. If you took the United Kingdom and Germany and made any of them the 51st state, they would immediately become the poorest state in the nation. It's like, are you serious? Like, it's weird that it's like the America Firsters take this very pro-Russia stance, but they're pro-West, but they kind of idolize Vladimir Putin. Some of them are taking money from him, for example. There's a lot of shady shit going on, John.
There is. In this whole bit that, Russia is this utopia and over here everything's bad. Like, is that nonsensical? It is. Like in economic data is very clear on that. All that said, what I think is driving this is there are some people that look at Russia, they're more afraid of their own government today than they are Russia.
Russia spends 40% of their income on groceries.
There you go.
We
statistic alone, yeah.
Now we spend over 50% on taxes. So who's got it worse? I don't know.
But yeah, I think that is part of what's driving this. You have people like Tucker Carlson who have awakened. We're not the good guys. And if you look, I don't know if you saw that Neil Ferguson wrote that article for the Free Press a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I forget. But he said, "Are we the baddies?" Basically, right? Are we becoming this evil force? That he was basically comparing us to like we're a new USSR. And Ferguson's a lot of things. Like he's a good writer. He's a smart guy. I don't laugh off what he was saying. I don't
laugh it off, but I think it's a tad hyperbolic, right? When you consider the millions of people starved and put into gulags and Alexander Solzhenitsyn and everything that they said, it's like you could draw parallels. You could draw parallels from the United States economy to the Nazi economy, right? To fascism, right? And things like that. But America is not Nazi Germany.
What he was doing, though, Ferguson wasn't comparing this to the war period in the USSR. He was comparing it to the post-war period. And he was looking at this malaise when you had all this rise in alcoholism and this apathy that was consuming. I think there's something like that. If you look at the drug abuse going on in this country, if you go down to go walk the cities, go downtown Minneapolis or Philadelphia or New York City.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
Like it's a culture that it feels like it's dying when you walk these cities. Like there's something wrong. And I don't think we should ignore that. Like we are the land of the free, but something is wrong. And I do think we've created this massive welfare state that discourages work, that discourage, like for us from being individuals. And it's easy to just collect a paycheck, right? Like there's ways to game the system. You can get food stamps. You can get, just enough there to maybe feed your habit. And turn your life into a mess.
Well, yeah, America's got problems, no doubt. America's got no problems, no doubt. And I certainly, I don't know if you ever read Ayn Rand's acolyte, a guy by the name of Leonard Peikoff. He wrote a book called The Ominous Parallels. and he made a comparison of the United States to Nazi Germany with some of the Gestapo tactics that the Department of Justice engages in, and the all out onslaught of political opponents by the government and the deep state and bureaucracies. But some of this, John, some of this is foreign propaganda, right? So we want to protect against enemies, foreign and domestic. Have we got a lot of domestic enemies? People like Dick Cheney and Kamala Harris and Republicans like Lindsey Graham are personally, sure, absolutely. But it seems like, if those problems are bigger, spend more time talking about them, but we can't just sweep it under the rug and suggest that there aren't foreign infiltrators acting to undermine American democratic processes, because there clearly aren't. I'm not just talking about the whole situation with Russian money coming into right wingers. I'm talking also about the Democrat in New York who, Kathy Hochul, the governor, who had an aide that was taking money from China and not registering under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Now, I know a lot of libertarians, John, who look at FARA, that act, and they're like, well, this is unconstitutional. It should be free speech. So, I mean, what about that situation, John, where you have somebody who's taken money from China working literally inside the government of the United States for a governor and taking money from communist Chinese? How do you feel about that situation?
Well, no, it's dangerous. And what was she talking about? She's pushing DEI publicly. Yes, accepting government money from foreign nations and serving as mouthpieces is something like, don't do that. Like,
should it be legal, or should it be, is it free speech?
I think if you're accepting money from other governments, expect to be fully prosecuted to the law, right?
Okay,
like
so it should. So as a libertarian, you can say that there should be a law preventing people who are taking money from foreign governments from taking jobs in the American government.
Yeah, like it depends. I hesitate to say it because we're talking about very large issues here. And what are the penalties? Are we going to be throwing people in prison? Like to me, this is a very, very potent power in giving government the power to. If you go back to the Espionage Act, I would not pass that act. I think it's way too broad. And I don't know if that's what some of these people are going to be prosecuted under or not, because there's other laws that were passed.
Well, I mean, it's simple. Even you prosecute them as spies, because that's what they are. They're spying, right? They're going out and they're taking money from a foreign government to provide information on the inner workings of our American governments, and not just the federal government, but it seems on the state level. The Chinese, for example, are embedding agents within our government, not telling us that they're taking that money and providing that information. That seems to me just to be a pretty clear-cut case of spying. That seems prosecutable.
Yeah, but you need a statute, right? Like they are going to be charged under a statute. And like I said, I don't know if that's the Espionage Act or not, but I do know the Espionage Act as written is way too broad for my taste. And what you will have are people being prosecuted for things that I don't think they should be prosecuted for. So, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to try to say exactly how a law should be written. I think the way we have it now is way too broad. But yeah, I think it is safe to say when you're accepting cash from Russia or China, nations hostile, and it may be even not hostile, because I think there was wasn't it Max Boot whose wife was just charged as well?
South Korea.
South Korea.
She was taking
not a hostile, country to us. So,
everybody spies on us, John. Everybody spies on us, and we spy on everybody. And it's a Mexican standoff. There's no way to get away from it. It's my problem with like modern libertarianism is that it really just doesn't have anything to say about self-defense. Like, libertarians have the symbols of defense, the Gadsden flag, the "Don't Tread on Me," but there's no legitimate logistical plan, legal, moral, philosophical that would explain just exactly how the snake can not be tread on, right? It seems like there's a lot of treading going on, and I don't hear a lot of good solutions for how to deal with things like that. I mean, even if South Korea is spying on us, and we still have a right to spy back, which means we need a spy agency, which means we've already violated the NAP by taking the tax dollars to fund the spy agency. It seems like catch-22s that people like ourselves are in, John.
I hear where you're coming from, but I think one of the reasons for this is because the U.S. government is so powerful. That's what encourages this.
It's our fault. It's our fault.
If it wasn't so powerful, like, I mean, it's going to invite more actors in there to try to manipulate it, to try to get massive subsidies or try to do these things.
But we're supposed to be powerful, right? It's a good thing that the United States is rich and powerful, and everybody. If we're rich and powerful,
the U.S. government.
Well, here's the thing. If we're going to have a government, I'd prefer my government be more powerful than North Korea's. I'd prefer my government to have a more powerful military than the next guy. Yeah, I would like the United States military to be stronger than China's military or stronger than Russia's military. Yeah, I do want the American government and the American people, our nation, to be the most powerful government and the most powerful people in the world. Yes. Rich, powerful,
I'm not talking,
everything.
I'm not talking strictly about the U.S. military. I would very much like the U.S. government to be much weaker. I would like us to go back to being kind of more of a you know, what we were under the founding, when you had a limited central government, right, with very clear defined powers. States.
That's never going to happen, John. Control. We're not going back to 1776. Things have changed since then. We have to deal with reality as it lies today.
Are you saying though we shouldn't be fighting for federalism?
Federalism is a means to an end. Federalism is not the end itself. Federalism is only good, John, in that it actually gets us what we want. Federalism is a process like you might look at any other process that you would apply. It's one tincture that you add to the formula to try and get what you want, which is it tends to lead to individual liberty, but it doesn't always lead to individual liberty. But the individual liberty is what matters, right? That's why with the 14th Amendment, we incorporated the Bill of Rights to the states because the states weren't protecting our individual rights. We didn't take a federalist approach to abandoning or getting rid of Jim Crow. We took an anti-federalist, not in the 1700s anti-federalist view, but we took in the sense that we didn't believe in federalism when we wanted the federal government to step in and stop states from taking away people's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. You know, one day the 10th might get incorporated, probably not. But yeah, federalism is not the cure to our solutions. It's just one part of the tincture in the salve, right?
I think it's an integral part of the checks and balances, why you want power dispersed, right? And decentralize everything. I really believe that. And when things get too big, they get dysfunctional. And there's nothing bigger right now on earth practically than the U.S. government is doing things it's not supposed to be doing. And when you look at so many of our cultural problems, our social problems, our economic problems, they stem from this. That the U.S. government is involved in almost everything in our lives today. And these are things that it was never intended to be this way. I think if America is going to persist as a country and endure as a country, those powers need to be rolled back in some way. Now, is that difficult?
I think that the power that the U.S. government can hold sway over American citizens domestically, I think you have a good point, right? We should protect the individual rights of the people here in the United States first. I'm for America first. And to an extent, when the United States has jurisdiction in other areas, then the Constitution should apply. But I think it's dangerous and naive to suggest that the government should be weaker in the sense that China should have a stronger government or stronger military than us and capable of and to leave us in a situation where we're subservient to Chinese policy around the world. That strikes me as, I don't know, that strikes me as very naive, John. And that's a position that you hold. We should allow them to you're not going to get free trade, international free trade, by the way, if Chinese communists are the ones who are controlling the shipping lanes.
Well, I've had this discussion with many people like, oh, we need a very powerful U.S. military if we want free trade. And I say, well, why do you
That's what the founders said. That's what the founders believed, and that's why they sent the Marines into the Barbary Coast, the Barbary pirates, to protect us. And then after
what we have are private enterprises that are able to control. You put a 20mm cannon on these, and guess what? Pirates aren't going to attack them.
The reason they can't do that, though, is because of the international laws that they're required to obey in order for those private merchant seamen to be able to operate within the waters that are not international. And I would love your brother. I'm you're talking my game here. If I could hire my own little private army like Eric Prince and do security for private corporations and all that, but the left would create a million Hollywood movies about the dystopia that allows people like you and I to set 20 millimeter cannons on the end of a boat and protect merchant seamen, right? But when I speak to people like U.S. Marines like Larry Sharp and others, they think that view is dangerously naive. I tend to take the view of the Marines as well, and I've been to Quantico many times. The founding fathers created the U.S. Navy for the explicit purpose of protecting American merchant shipping, because they, even at the time with the maritime laws such as it were, they were incapable of defending merchant shipping. And now, after World War II and the post-World War II order, such as it is right now, it's a absolute guarantee that if the United States doesn't protect merchant shipping within the boundaries of the laws that exist in other countries, then there will be pirates and plunderers, and Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz and prevent shipping and things like that. That's just a guarantee. That's just reality, John.
I can see there is a global framework that makes part of this a challenge. Because like suddenly you blow pirates to pieces and you're going to be facing an international commission or something.
Yeah.
But there's also the people they want
white Americans with 20 millimeter cannons in private corporations going off the coast of the Horn of Africa and shooting black men in the face, blasting their skulls open, would make a very interesting front page news around the world.
Firing on pirates invading your ship should not be anything that would land you in a criminal tribunal. Right?
It shouldn't, but this is not the world that you and I live in. We live in other people's world. We're not the ones in power.
But this is my point. The U.S. government is powerful enough. They can shape this framework, right? We have the ability to do that, at least, right? We have to do this diplomatically to make changes. But they really don't have an interest in that. They want to be spread out all over the world. They want to have the Navy parked over here. This is part of what the American empire. And I think that's what we really need to think of it now. America is an empire. And it happened accidentally. We kind of inherited the British Empire after they collapsed after World War II. But America was never supposed to be this. And it's no coincidence that since we became an empire, liberty at home has steadily declined.
It's true. It's true. But the world forced our hand. And I can say on one hand that it would be wise for us to have a military that's strong enough to confront two world powers, rival powers, should we be attacked in such a way, and also believe that the way that the American government should operate is not to create a police state at home in order to enforce international law abroad. I mean, we can revisit Pax Americana all day, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the direction of the Republican Party, John. Let's get off this foreign policy stuff, even though it's fascinating to me. I know for most people it's just too in the weeds. I wanted to talk to you about this piece. Republican voters got more socially liberal under Trump. Liberals spent the last decade moving leftward on questions of race and sexual orientation, and so did conservatives. Now, this is how I'm going to set this up. Social conservatives have been very mad at Donald Trump recently, many of them. Not all of them, but many of them have come out and said, I don't support Donald Trump. I can't vote for him because of his position on abortion or other position like removing the gay marriage plank from the Republican Party. I mean, we all know Donald Trump for the playboy that he is, front cover of Playboy magazine, right? He's not been like an example of your typical Christian conservative right winger, that they are familiar with or they like. So when it comes to how Donald Trump has changed the Republican Party, I have these conversations with libertarians. They think I'm insane. I'm like, the Republican Party in many ways is more libertarian than it's ever been, not just because of the LGBT stuff or perhaps the other social issues or abortion that Donald Trump feels, but also because Donald Trump is less hawkish than Dick Cheney. That's why they're endorsing Kamala Harris, for example. So you could say Donald Trump has turned the party in, well, they'll call it more socially liberal, but I would call it more socially libertarian direction. Would you agree with that premise?
I think so. And I'll say this, the party has certainly become that, like how much that was going to happen on its own and how much it stems from Trump is debatable. I think some of this stuff was just, you had the Supreme Court, that Obergefell and these rulings that kind of said, no, this is how it's going to be. And Americans said, okay. And even before that, trends were, you had things like Americans were becoming more accepting of the idea of gay marriage. Even if they didn't support it themselves, they're like, okay, you can do that. If you look, you can go back decades as far as like interracial marriage and these things. A lot of these trends go way back. And but I think your point is that Trump had something to do with this too. He's a thrice married guy who back when Bill Clinton was president, I know that there's a lot of people they used to just mock his libido and stuff, and like it was very frowned upon. They don't care about Trump's, right? Like these are things, and I think a lot of people are like, look, we've just sort of accepted the fact that politicians, we're not going to get Abe Lincoln or George Washington, or like the politicians in the 21st century tend to be people that are a little bit power hungry.
But here's the thing. Donald Trump didn't have to come out and say. He could have said, I believe in vitro fertilization and I support it, and that's it, right? He went further. He came out and said, I believe in like universal IVF, right? More babies is good. I think the government should fund it. Now, you and I, we may think as fiscally conservative people, maybe the government should be funding IVF, for example. Maybe the government could get out of the way, make it less expensive, which they definitely could, right? If that was the way to go. But the fact that he actually stridently defended it to the point of arguing that it should be universal or that it should be paid for by the government makes me think that to some extent Trump is sort of, I don't know, rubbing the cigarette out, putting a cigarette out on the hands of social conservatives who have made things like IVF or surrogates a big issue right now on the right. I mean, I know you're a socially conservative Christian guy, John. I don't know how you feel about IVF personally, but I thought it was kind of a big statement for Donald Trump to come out and say something like that, regardless of whether you agree with the funding question.
Yeah, no, and speaking to myself personally, like I think maybe my views might be socially conservative, but I never thought of myself. I'm certainly not a moral majority type conservative, right? I'm a live and let live conservative and get off my lawn conservative, much more than I care about a lot of these social issues. I like this IVF one. I just simply haven't followed that closely. Like there's too many things, during this election cycle. I've been far more, focused on.
So, you didn't know? Issues. You didn't know that he had said that about in vitro?
No idea.
Oh, and this, you think that's a bombshell? Then the other bombshell I'll drop on you might not have heard as well is apparently Florida has an abortion bill. And this is a perfect segue because I got to go get Camilla to talk about Missouri's. But apparently he's going to vote against it, if I'm correct. Please fact check me on this one. The audience has gotten huge, so there's a lot of people to fact check me out there. But I believe he said he would not vote for Florida's abortion ban because he thinks 6 weeks is not enough time. So pro IVF, fund IVF, plus 6 weeks is not enough time when it comes to abortion. This is not your typical Republican presidential candidate, right, John? I'll give you the last word before we go.
Yeah, and I guess just so I'm clear on the Florida law, like he's saying Trump thinks
they need more time. They need more time than 6 weeks. Yeah, to decide whether or not they could be able to have an abortion.
Yeah, no, this strikes me as Trump, the realist, right? And I think here, put aside my own views on human life. If I'm a presidential candidate like Donald Trump, I'm trying to say, look, let's be more like Europe on this, right? Europe doesn't say you can be 8 months pregnant and go, terminate a baby. Let's get, but let's not have it 6 weeks. Let's have it, 12 weeks, 14 weeks, before, when it's in an early stage or something. That to me seems just like a good political calculus for a presidential candidate who's trying to navigate a very tricky issue like abortion, one that, I'm pro-life, but I recognize this issue is probably one that's going to hurt the GOP. Like in a lot of these suburban areas, like it's one that has, soccer moms very fired up. If you have political discussions around, like this is an issue that a lot of women are passionate about. And, if Trump is trying to find a way to split the baby, pardon the pun, and kind of find a 12-week, 14-week period versus an 8, that just, to me is political good sense.
All right. Well, we've got a lot to cover with Camilla Peterson about the abortion question here in Missouri. So I got to let you go. John Miltimore, anything else you want to say before we let you go?
No, check out our content at the American Institute for Economic Research. We have several good stories up there today. Check out my content at The Take on Substack.
There we go. John Miltimore, thank you very much for your time. Mondays with Miltimore, telling the truth no matter how bad it hurts. Have a good one, bud. We'll see you next week.
Hey, CAP.
Great conversations that we have with John Miltimore, and we have him every Monday here on the Wake Up America show. I can see that we are telling the truth because some people in the chat are very pissed off. Remember, the truth will set you free, but first, it will piss you off. I see someone saying that I'm a liar. Someone called me a fucking liar, as a matter of fact, in the chat, saying that Donald Trump does not want the government to pay for IVF. He did say government or private insurance, but the government could also pay for IVF. And I included the link to that in the chat. So you, my lady, owe me an apology, goddammit, because I was right. You know how else is right a lot? Almost as much as me. Kamala Peterson. She's going to be joining us live in less than 5. I'm going to go get her. She's hanging out and stand by. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Kamala Peterson on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Good morning. Rise and freedom. Boy, things are getting contentious around here this morning. It's the Wake Up America show. We're glad to have you here. I'm Austin Peterson. This show streams live Mondays through Fridays, 5 days a week, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. We'd love to have you be a regular guest. So why don't you hit that subscribe button and come back and join us again tomorrow morning. It's the Wake Up America show. And my next guest, Kamala, normally joins us here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but she's got a little scheduling conflict. So we wanted to have her today because she's just such a great guest. What's up, CJ?
Good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Kamala, we're talking about abortion this morning. I was talking about it with John Miltimore, specifically in regards to Donald Trump's comments about abortion in the 6-week period. And some people were saying that I was being dishonest about Donald Trump saying that he thought that the government or private corporation should fund IVF, right? And of course, this is what he said, that the government should step in and fund IVF. And if the government wouldn't, then private corporations, private insurance would require them to carry it. So no matter what, essentially the government would step in and require IVF. So now we're having this big discussion about what Trump's view is about abortion when it comes to 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. I don't think we really know. It's probably expediency to get elected. I totally understand that. Florida has their own law that's going to be voted on this fall. Missouri has its own law that's going to be maybe voted on. Maybe it's not going to be voted on. This is a big story here in the state of Missouri. I was actually nervous. I thought that this was going to be on the ballot. And to be quite honest, I thought Missouri was going to vote for it. What's the ballot initiative here in Missouri? And what's the latest news on this?
So if anybody remembers what Ohio passed last year, they passed a very extreme abortion ballot initiative, and Missouri's is very similar. It is basically no limits, and it includes other things. Really, the wording is so badly done that it could be used for all kinds of things. It could be even applied to gender transition for minors. Like, there are all kinds of applications that, should it pass, could be used outside of the context of abortion itself. So it's a really bad ballot initiative. That said, they got the required amount of signatures. They got more than what they needed. And so it was approved to go on the ballot. The question was always, does it cover more than one subject? And a lot of people argued that it did cover more than one subject. So there's a lawsuit that is claiming that, but not only that, but primarily the lawsuit was filed, and it was saying that the full text of the ballot measure, it did not meet the state requirements because it did not name existing law or portions of the law or the Constitution that would be repealed if it was passed by voters. And Missouri has a lot of very strict anti-abortion laws on the books. And as soon as, like, we were the first one to go into effect, with the abortion ban when Roe v. Wade was overturned. And so they're very strict. There are a lot of people who disagree with it because they say that there need to be more exceptions. They don't like the conception baseline for when it applies. So that's the question. The judge basically ruled this last week that it could, Friday, I think, actually, that he put a stay on it. So it's not going on the ballot yet. And he said that it failed to meet those requirements. However, they are appealing immediately to the Missouri Supreme Court. And so those arguments will be heard tomorrow morning at 8:30, which is really important because they have to make a decision tomorrow one way or the other, because the deadline for printing ballots is tomorrow at.
They're now doing a promo code. It's $10 off with the promo code STUDIO. If you purchase an annual subscription from them, go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and you believe in the cause, now's the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy that you watch us here on Rumble. Thank you, Rumble, very much this morning for your support in defending free speech. And they put us on the front page. The question, respite, by the way, not respite. Thank you. Look, it's Liz. If somebody mispronounces a word, it's because they got it by reading. So, yeah.
You know, one thing about this question of the abortion ballot initiative is that when you look in terms of the initiative petition process that Missouri and some other states have, like, the big complaint about this is how much outside money comes in to fund these things. And I was just looking at the numbers, and the campaign committee that is backing this amendment, which is Amendment 3. So by the way, for all our Missouri people, vote no on Amendment 3 if it does stay on the ballot. It has received more than 8 million in donations of $5,000 or more. And for comparison, some of the committees that have been formed to oppose that are at less than 1 million. And so they're really outgunned in terms of funding. But that's what, they've just really been focusing on getting the word out, because there are a lot of people who will go to the ballot and have not been paying attention to it. And they say, oh, we're here for women's reproductive health, and it sounds really great. Well, that sounds like a good thing. We'll vote for that.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Camelia, just out of curiosity, on the in vitro fertilization question, because when we started talking about it a little bit earlier, and I said that Trump wanted to fund it, somebody called me a dirty liar, and then like 400 people ran away. So it's like, scare them off of this topic. But I like to double down on dangerous conversations like that. I'd love to get your take on the IVF question, Camelia, because it's such a difficult decision if you're a pro-lifer like us. Although I don't have the same confidence that the social conservatives do about when life begins. If I had to guess, it would be at conception. But here's the thing. I'll ask you this question, how you would respond. And then I think you could probably guess how I would answer this question. But I don't know how you would answer this question. And I want our audience to answer this question in their heads, or perhaps in the chat. Let us know how you would react in this situation. Are you ready, Camelia, for the hypothetical? Okay.
Right.
Here comes the hypothetical, Camelia. You are in an IVF clinic. There is a screaming, wailing baby that is 1 year old, perhaps a little baby, it's just, toddler, whatever, 1 year old baby. And it's there in the IVF clinic is on fire. And there is a bunch of fertilized vials of babies in the freezer. You only have time to save one. Do you save the living, kicking, screaming, fleshy baby, or do you grab the 10 test tube vials full of babies? Will you save 10 lives, or will you save one life? Camelia, take it away.
I'm saving one. It's not even a question.
Boom. You're a genocide, mass murdering Holocauster. Me too. I would save the baby. Why? Why would you save the baby instead of the test tubes? Full of babies.
It is right. I mean, it's the question. Well, I mean, it's like what you said, there is the question of, where does life begin, right? But the reality is this is a baby who is living and breathing in the world right now. And there is no question about that. Whereas, the others are potential, right? They haven't baked yet. Like, there are other conditions that have to be met in order for them to.
The sperm and the egg have met, and it is fertilized. They're just frozen and waiting for us to unfreeze them. The cryogenic process, Camelia.
Even in the human body, in the female human body, sperm and egg can meet, and sometimes they don't always take, right? So all of the conditions have to be met in order for that baby to continue growing to full term. So yeah, I understand, like, that is the question. And
I bet you if you ask the question just directly to anybody other than like the most hardcore of extremists on the social conservative movement, the hardest core of the fundies, I think most people would probably, I bet like 90% of people would say, I would save the flesh baby.
Sure. Like, I mean, yeah, 100%. That's just, I don't even see how that's really even a question. I would absolutely save that baby.
But so then does life begin at conception?
You know, for me, I mean, kind of where you are, like, I honestly don't know that I can say that life begins when the sperm and the egg join. Just because I think that, like I said, I think that all of the conditions have to be met. There has to be implantation, like it has to begin growing. The conditions have to be right. So in a vial, a petri dish without those conditions,
What
they're
about
not all met.
But the problem is that when we introduce the concept of the artificial womb, Camellia, then it's like, wow, we've introduced an artificial womb, and then that it has the potential and the conditions, unless you pull the plug that's connecting it to the machine, right? Then all of a sudden it doesn't have it anymore, and it's no longer viable.
You have a power outage, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
No longer viable. So act of God.
well, right. I mean, happens in humans too. So yeah, no, that's always the moral dilemma, right? You know,
I mean, there's psychos. There's psychos on both left and right, Camellia.
Sure,
Stephanie and I, of course, we've got the baby is like 7 weeks old now, little Hazel. And we're terrified of SIDS, right? We're terrified of like accidentally rolling over on our baby in the night, or well, because she doesn't sleep with us, but we're terrified that we'll fall asleep and then roll over on her while she's like feeding in bed with us at night or what have you, right? Like Stephanie has like nightmares where she like pictures that the baby's in bed with her, and then she looks over and she's like, she's in the pram and it's just okay, right? And then we see sudden infant death syndrome. Certain percentage of those women, though, Camellia, this is very uncomfortable to discuss, but I love, this is why I get in trouble. This is why 400 people dropped off of this stream earlier, is because I talk about things like this. But I think that there's a portion of SIDS that they're just smothering their baby on purpose. And
okay, I saw something about this the other day.
I think that there are people who think you've ever I know you don't watch a lot of pop culture stuff, but did you ever hear that song Prom Night Dumpster Baby? I'm just a prom night dumpster baby from Family Guy. You haven't heard of that? The prom night. Did you ever see that girl who went to the hospital because she was supposedly having stomach troubles, and then she had the baby in the bathroom and she threw it in the dumpster, or she threw it in like the little napkin dispenser or whatever, trash for it, and pretended like it wasn't there, and it smothered to death. I think a certain percentage of these people think that, like, remember when was it Ralph Northam, the governor, sat down and said like, if they'll sit down, they'll have a conversation with the doctor, the baby will be made comfortable, and then there'll be a decision made between a discussion that we'll have with the doctor and the mother and stuff like that. I think at least a percentage of these radicals, because you can't just talk about the right-wing radicals who are like, I would save the test tube vials and not the flesh baby, right? There are leftists who think that they should be able to kill their babies after they're born. Isn't that the case?
Oh, I'm sure they do exist. I mean, we've seen them say so. I think that they are few and probably far between, I hope. But no, the SIDS question is interesting because I don't like, that seems to be a relatively recent thing, in the last few decades. And people have been really scared about it. But, and that's why they would tell you, oh, you can't let your baby sleep on their stomach and all of these kinds of things. But yeah, I have seen this theory that those numbers come more from mothers intentionally killing their babies. And I don't know, because like, how do you know? SIDS is self-reported, right? There are no witnesses to something.
They smothered
like
in
that.
the night. Oh, well, how did that happen? They put the pillow over the head of the baby, and then all of a sudden they don't have to deal with the problems from the baby daddy anymore. Problem solved, right? And that's got to be, I mean, when you see the stories, I mean, the thing is, whenever you see a story in the media, it's always the tip of the iceberg, right? There's always, when it actually gets reported, then there's something else going on, right? Because a certain percentage of them are just going to be murdering their own babies after they.
I mean, and I think that, this is this trend where you see this happening now more, where people are openly talking about how their children are a burden and they're keeping them from enjoying their lives and doing things, which is alarming in a lot of ways, because children should be treasured. And it's not that your entire life does revolve around your children, but also not. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense. People who are parents will know, but I mean, it was like, you don't place your children up on a pedestal, but your life is centered around making sure that they are nurtured and cared for and raised to be good human beings.
And I'm in the middle of this discovery process as it is right now. It's almost 9 a.m. Camelia, we're not going to get you tomorrow morning. That sucks. But we will
have to talk about polyamory another time, because I think that probably could tie into our abortion issue problem.
Yes, yeah. They don't know who the father is. All of a sudden, infant death syndrome, what have you. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. We'll talk about it another time. Camelia, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go?
No, I would just say for my Missouri people, if the Amendment 3 does not go on the ballot, we can rejoice, but don't count on it. It's probably going to stay on the ballot. So we do need everybody to spread by word of mouth, at least make people aware of what it is, especially your friends who are not politically plugged in and watching things. That's the only way that we will get that done.
There we go. Boy, we have offended a lot of people in the chat. Camelia, they're running like flies for the exits.
Oh no, my internet has sucked this morning, so I haven't been able to look at the chat at all. So
oh god, they're pissed. They're pissed. This is not the show for people who are weak in the knees, right? This is not a show for snowflakes. This is only a show for people who can take it. Camelia, will we see you on Thursday?
I believe so. We've got to work out the timing, but we're going to try. I'll be in a time
Okay, good.
Zone,
all right. Camelia Peterson, we appreciate you. We love you. Yes, listen, here's the deal, okay? I know many of you, it's your first time seeing or hearing from me today, and you don't like it. I'm an acquired taste anyway, is what it is. But if you're hard, philosophical, if you got a thick skin, and you like to laugh, and you can take really difficult conversations even like that, right? Even if you disagree with me, right? And you can still stick around, then kudos to you. I give you tons of credit. This is, anything goes. We can talk about anything to anyone about anything. And it freaks people out, honestly. I don't conform to a left-right viewpoint. I think for myself, I'm completely independent, which is going to piss a lot of people off, right? I know some people, they would prefer to just have me repeat their opinions back to them. And honestly, I'd be a lot more financially successful if I just did that, found out tell me what it is you want me to say, right? Whatever. Like, give me the money and I'll do whatever. I'll dance, monkey dance. But happier to have a smaller audience if I get to have free speech, right? And I can make a good living doing what I'm doing right now, podcasting, right? I'm not funded by Russia. I'm not funded by the Chinese. I'm funded by the people who watch the Wake Up America show. Thank you to everyone who donated this morning. I'm grateful. It's a beautiful mid-Missouri morning here in Jefferson City, Missouri. If today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show and you can handle the truth, click that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed it, make sure you click like as well. As you exit, we like to joke that you exit through the grift shop, not the gift shop. What is the grift shop, Austin? It's where we grift all your monies. You can head over to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4, forlibertyshop.com, and get yourself an awesome Less Marks, More Millet shirt. I'm a big fan of Javier Millet. If you are too, you can get this exclusively at forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4, forlibertyshop.com. Head on out through the grift shop and hook yourself up. We've got Trump merchandise. We've got Liberty merchandise. We've got Javier Millet. So like 6 pages of Javier Millet merchandise only at forlibertyshop.com. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Appreciate you all very much. Don't forget, if you're leaving, click that follow button. We'd love to see you guys here again tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Oh, Mind Art, you're here. Thank God. Okay, hey, real quick, Mind Art, just FYI. I haven't emailed you back yet about the swim trunks that are too small for you. I'm going to send you a gift certificate to the shop, okay? So you're going to get, instead of the shorts, I'm going to send you just a gift card, okay? There you go. You can go shopping at forlibertyshop.com. Thanks for all your support, Mindar. You've been very generous. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Bye, guys. Breaks our brains. Years ago, we started this journey together, bringing you the Wake Up America show every morning. I couldn't have done it without my incredible wife, Steffi, who's always by my side, and now our beautiful baby, Hazel, who's already getting used to studio life, waiting patiently during Freedom Family Fridays. But what truly makes this show special is you. Your donations, your purchases from forlibertyshop.com. You're not just supporters, you're family. Together we've built something amazing, and we're just getting started. Thank you for being a part of our family. Here's to many more years of Wake Up America.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor of your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's revolutionary roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's patriotic perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks, just pure patriotic pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your Founding Flavors at ap4libertyshop.com.